When buying items in either line, always enter code Aceface in the Support a Creator tab. This will make it so 5% of the purchase will support me at no extra cost to you, so I appreciate it a lot. Hello everybody, my name is Aceface. This is a guide and explanation video on Planetary Interaction, aka PI in EVE Online. So I wanted to explain this to you guys and show you why I do the setup I do, because I found that PI in the beginning, when I didn't know what it was, I found it really overwhelming, and it felt like there's just too many options, not knowing what to do, when to do, and what's the point even, like when is best to do what kind of setup. So let's just go over the basics, how PI works. EVE Online, you have planets. Planets, you can make factories and extract resources. Extracting resources can be then sold for ISK, but you can also make these resources that you extract into other components, and then you can sell that also for ISK. Usually, the more processed the resources are, the more ISK they sell for. So if we look here, this is a very, very good website that can help you sort of understand this. It's called ISK. Very, very, very good. I appreciate ISK for making this. So you got the different planets. There's different types of planets in EVE Online, barren, gas, etc. They all have certain types of items on them. These are the resources. You see here, barren has aqueous liquids, base metals, etc. So they have different types of resources. These resources, these are what you extract. And then, say, this is the first level of processing, so basic. So water, you just take aqueous liquids and you process it into water. Water is then going to be selling for more than aqueous liquids, as you can see here. Let's go here. Aqueous. So here, aqueous liquids, 2 ISK, and then we go on water, 600 ISK. So you just process that aqueous liquids and it is worth quite a bit more ISK. So it goes up like this. You keep using the refining, so you go more or deeper and deeper, and they're worth more. So they use also more components as well. So item that is common made is coolant. That is something that people often produce because it's quite profitable, useful item. It uses 2 items. You see here, water and electrolytes. And let's say condensates, it uses coolant and oxides, and then this is using multiple ones of these. So you can see that the further up the tier you go, the more items you're going to like require. So the more complex it becomes, the further up this tier you go. But also the more expensive and rewarding these become. So let's say, for example, integrity response drones. Integrity response drones, the most highest tier. You see 2.4 million for one of these. And then let's compare that to coolant, which I'm producing right now. Coolant, you see only 9k ISK. So why then wouldn't everyone just produce these highest tiers of components? Well, it's because it's a lot more advanced. Because you see how they require so many items. This means that you're going to have to use so many different planets to extract these items. So it's not necessarily that all these planets will exist in the system you want. So it could mean that you have to logistically haul them from different systems. And then it also means that you're going to have maybe different planets producing different items. For example, me, personally, I like producing these P2s. And the reason is because it is very simple. You only need 2 items. And these are often acquired from just a single planet. If you use, for example, integrity response drones, you need all these items that are required from many different types of planets. You can think of it like this. The more work you want to put in, the more ISK you get. So you can produce these higher tier components, but they will require more work from you, more hauling, more moving, more managing, maybe even multiple accounts to accommodate for all the different planets on different accounts, because you can max have 6 planets per account. So you might even need to have more alts to produce all the items for these highest tier ones, but you get more ISK. Or you can produce something a little bit lower tier, less effort from you, less management, but they'll give less ISK. So it's your choice. Do you want to go really high and advanced, but more management, or lower tier? You want to get a little bit less ISK. Okay, so as we said before, max 6 planets. So that is a limitation per account, but you can have obviously unlimited accounts. The thing I like is that something that we have to consider is that then you might think, well, why can't you in a planet then produce the highest tier components? Why can't I produce like advanced on a single planet? Well, as we mentioned before, since they require so many items, it's often going to require items that are from multiple planets, because different planets have different types of items. So it's often going to require a lot of different items. And it also has to do with that on a planet, you can only build a certain amount of structures. You can't build unlimited amounts of factories. There's a limitation to this. So in a planet, you always start with a command center. And you can upgrade this to different levels. It costs ISK to upgrade, that's the main thing. And it has power grid and CPU. This determines how much you can build. So there's a limitation on how much you can build per planet. So that's why you can't just build unlimited amounts of factories on a single planet. So even if some of these high tier components would need just everything from one planet, it's still not going to work, because you need to have, there's only a limited amount of items you can produce on one planet. Okay, so then how do I have the setup? Why do I have the setup I do? Well, I have the setup on the planet so that I can produce the P2s. The P2s. This is because P2s do not require a lot of items. They often, not all the time, depends a little bit on which P2 you choose, but I like to produce P2 items that can be produced on a single planet. So that's why I produce, for example, coolant, because coolant can all be produced on one single planet. It can use water and electrolytes, and these are all found on gas planets. See, water is found on gas, and electrolyte is found on gas planets. So I can produce the coolant on one single planet. And why do I want to have this? Well, this means it's so that I don't have to move items from different planets to produce other planets. A lot less management if you have everything on one planet, because then you just have to, it works autonomously. These planetary structures, they pull items and they produce. So I don't have to do any management, it just produces these for me. I can't produce P3s on a single planet, it's too advanced, there's too many items. So that's why I keep the P2s, because I like having profit, but then I also like having the work as low as possible. And I prioritize low work. So that's why I do as much as you can do on a single planet by keeping to the P2s. So that's why I do this. Another item I also produce is called the miniature electronics. You need the silicon and the chiral structures, as you can see here. And these are then from felsic magma and non-CS crystals. And you can see here, lava planets have both of the two items you need to produce miniature electronics. So that's why I produce the lava planets here. They have got them producing these miniature electronics because they can all be produced on one planet. And it's a P2 item. So that's why I do that. You might be asking, yeah, well, why don't you just instead just make a bunch of these P1s? Well, you could, but the thing is, they give a little bit less ISK. So that's why I prefer to use these. So I'm sort of capitalizing on the fact that I'm able to do everything on one planet and get as much ISK as possible. But you could. There's not like only one solution to the same problem. So that's why I produce the P2s, because they require as little effort as possible and can do everything on one planet. So that means that I don't have to put in effort holding stuff from planet to planet. Okay, so this is the basic setup I've got for my PI. It's the same on all planets. It just depends a little bit on what kind of planet I use. So, in this case, I'm producing miniature electronics. We can look here. Miniature electronics. The way everything starts is you put a command center down and then I upgrade it here to a max level. I have 2 extractors. The reason is because to produce these P2 items here, you need to extract 2 different types of resources from the planet. So that's why I have 2 extractors. Only like one extractor can only extract one type of item. So that's why I have one of each. So I have one extracting this felsic magma and the other one non-CS crystals. See here? And the reason I don't have multiple extractors is because the power grid doesn't allow me. So if we go in the felsic magma here, you can see where the most amount of felsic magma is. It automatically tells you where the most amount of the item is when you select it here. And if we stop production and you see we've got different extractor heads. So each head So each extractor has multiple heads. You can see here, you can move them around, and you can see it gets a different amount of average per hour if you move it. Do you want to move it so where it's the best? You can have it on different cycle lengths. The longer cycle you have, the less you'll get, but the less input you have to do. In the beginning, it always gives more, and in the end, it always gives less. I like to have it on 7 days. This means that if I, for some reason, I'm not in EVE Online, it'll still be extracting stuff just at a lower rate. So I just do that. And then I look here. And then I look for the non-CS crystals. I do stop extracting. And I move these. And you can install potentially more of these extractor heads. You see these? Each one of these extracts stuff. But the thing is, I can't because there's a max amount of power grid for the factory or the planet. So that's why I only have 2 extractors, because there's a maximum amount of power grid. You can't just have unlimited amounts of extracting. Okay, so then what I have is then I've got the launch pad, and a launch pad is what you use to get the items to you, because there's a customs office. You've probably seen the customs offices next to the planets. That's where you can get the launch pad, can communicate with the customs office, and you can get the items to the customs office. So that's why I've got a launch pad here. The launch pad acts as a storage because it's got pretty big storage here, but you can also install a storage facility. But I just use the launch pad as a storage. The more buildings you produce, the more power grid it's going to use. So you see what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to do the task I want to do, produce the P2s with using as little power grid as possible. So I'm using the launch pad here as a storage. So what do these extractor control units do? Well, they route items to the different factories. So to produce the P2s, if we go back to this one here, so we extract the felsic magma and the non-CS crystals. You can see here, felsic magma, non-CS crystals, extracting here. The felsic magma goes into the basic factory. This one here. It goes into here, and then what does it do? It produces silicon, because felsic magma becomes silicon. And then you see the non-CS crystals, they're extracted from this one. They go to the basic factory here, and it produces chiral structures. So here, non-CS chiral structures. I've arranged them in this particular shape just so it's more self-explanatory to you guys, but it can just be arranged however you want. So this is non-CS crystals, felsic magma, non-CS crystals, felsic magma, non-CS crystals, felsic magma. So you see they're all just copy-paste of each other. So these guys, they produce them, and then they produce the miniature electronics, the P2 that we're very sought after here, from this advanced factory. So these are 2 basic factories. These are advanced factories. So these 2 basic factories, they route the items into here, and then they produce this, miniature electronics. And this is the same thing here. They produce here, miniature electronics, miniature electronics. And the reason we've got 3 factory chains like this is because I can't produce any more due to power grid constraints. So that's the way it is. I don't have more factories because I can't due to power grid constraints. So how do you route them to each other? How do you tell them to communicate like this? Because I thought this was quite confusing in the beginning. Well, you do like this. You just click on them, create link, click here, click here, click here, click here. And the way you should click is that so the link is as short as possible. So you don't have to think of it like, you don't have to think of this, overcomplicate this, because you might think that, oh, I have to link the extractor to the basic factory, extractor to the basic factory, because this is taking the items, this felsic magma is then going to the basic factories, and then you maybe want to route the basic factory to the advanced factory because the silicon is going to the advanced factory. No. The only thing that Eve cares about is that a link exists. A link just means that it can communicate. It doesn't matter if I link this one to here or I link this one to here. They're all going to be able to communicate with each other. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that the link is as short as possible. So what I basically do is, when I have a setup like this, you ignore the command center. You don't link that. But I just make these as short as possible. I do this to this. I then do this to this. And then I do this to this, and then I do this to this. And then I don't do any more links. I don't like link the advanced factory to the launch pad because there's already an indirect link. You see, it goes here, here, and here. And I just link this to this, and then this to this, and then this to this. Then everything you could say is linked then. It chains with each other, if you understand what I mean. And it's good to keep the links as short as possible. Why? Because that uses as little power grid as possible. So use as little power grid as possible. That means you could potentially add another one of these extractor units. So that's how it works. So you don't like link stuff that's really far away to each other. You just link, so just make sure that everything has a link to the chain. Like just make sure it's like a chain and that it somehow has a link to each other. It doesn't have to directly be linked. So then how do you route items to the different structures? Well, you see we're producing felsic magma, or getting felsic magma here. You go and look at the products. This is what we've got here. And you see felsic magma. Okay, it's being extracted. Then I just delete route. And then I create a route. You see, you create this route. This is what actually tells where stuff goes. The link doesn't tell you where stuff goes, because I got very confused in the beginning, thinking the link is what tells you where stuff goes. Link only means that you can move items between these structures. It doesn't mean which structure it sends items to which structure. It doesn't have anything to do with it. What tells what item goes where are these routes that we're going to create here. So we go here, here. I've got this felsic magma. We route it. And I like to route this to the launch pad because it can store this in here. So here, there. And the same thing here. Let's delete this because I've already done this. I do this, create route, and I go to the launch pad, okay? There we go. So we've got them to the launch pad, right? So then look, I've just deleted the routes for the felsic magma, but what did we talk about before? The felsic magma is used to produce silicon, as you can see here. Silicon, felsic magma. So if all the items are being stored in the facility that we extract, then we'll want it so that when the felsic magma goes to the launch pad, we want it to go to the basic factory here. So what we do is we click on the launch pad. We go on the items we've got here. We routes. Okay, routes. You see that the incoming felsic magma, it means it's incoming from the extractor. So then we click on this, create route, and then we click on here, the basic factory that we need to go to. Here, create route. Simple. And then we click on the big stack as well because the incoming. Create route. Here. Good. And then we create route. So there we go. So now we know we can click here. We know that the felsic magma is incoming. And you just click here, silicon, and install the schematic. That's what you do there. There we go. And then we go here. We get install schematic. Install schematic. There we go. Good. And then we do the same thing here. So now I've already routed the chiral structures because the other one is producing chirals or non-CS crystals. And then this is going into the launch pad. See here. And they're then going to the basic factory here to make chiral structures. So then I just go here and press this, install. Oh, don't need to click on that. There we go. And then I install here. So then, okay, so we've got all the basic stuff being produced, but we want this to go to the advanced factory. So then we go here, silicon. It's already being routed. It's the same thing. You go on routes, silicon, and then now in this case I would delete route, and then I would click here, create route on the advanced factory. So then it goes to here. Now I've already set it up for every single one, but you can see here. So chiral structures are being produced. If we just delete this, if we go on products, you see products. If I then create route, go to the advanced factory, create routes, then it's going here. And it's the same concept here. I install schematic the same way. Install schematic. And then you can also, if you want to make it quicker, when you've installed the schematic, you just click on the launch pad, create route. And it seems it's already got a route set up for me before. So we just make sure that it's installed schematic, good. Okay, and then lastly, when I've made sure that it's producing the miniature electronics, then what I do is I then go here, install, and then I click on the launch pad, and then I create a route. Now in this case, I can't create the route because I've already made a route, but it will then say that, okay, these are going to be routed to here. And you can see a confirmation of that. When you go into the routes tab, you see miniature electronics is outgoing to lava launch pad. And the reason you want it to be outgoing here is because then we can eventually move this to the customs office and then extract this. So you just go to the customs office and just send it there. Just one thing I forgot to mention is that one of my lava planet here is doing miniature electronics. The other two have got the consumer electronics being produced. And the reason for that is because this lava planet has really low amounts of felsic magma. And remember when we went over the miniature electronics before, it requires felsic magma. This is making it so that we're going to have a bit of a bottleneck here since there's so little felsic magma, such a high amount of non-CS crystals. So I was thinking, you know what, I'm not going to go for miniature electronics here because we're going to be bottlenecked a lot. So instead what I did was I went, look, what else can I produce on lava planets? And the consumer electronics. That can also be produced on a lava planet. You see, heavy metals and non-CS crystals both exist on a lava planet. So then I went, okay, see, heavy metals, non-CS crystals, they're about the similar. So that's why I went for that. And it's the same thing for this one as well. See, very, very low amounts of felsic magma. So these two are about the same. So that's why in this case I went for these. Gas planet, it's got a lot of aqueous liquids and ionic solutions. And these are two that are required for coolant. So that's why I went for this. But use this website to get an idea of what you want to produce is really good. And then check the Jita markets, make sure that they're like worth anything. Sometimes it could be that they're worth very little as well. So, should you do PI in nullsec, highsec, lowsec, wormhole space? Where should you do? Well, again, that depends. If you just want to be in highsec, do it in highsec, but you get the most amount of resources extracted from these extractor heads. You see here, these extractor heads, they extract items. There's more resources in the ones in nullsec and wormhole space. A little bit less in lowsec and the worse in highsec. So depends the safety and logistics for you. It all depends. It's a lot less in highsec. I think it's worth to do it in nullsec if you can somehow get it there. Get transport. They've got a buyback program in my corporation, so that's why I do it there in nullsec. But I hope that I explained this to you guys. PI, it seems very complicated. It is quite complicated, but it depends. It's like I was getting overwhelmed, like, oh no, I'm going to make a really bad setup. It all depends really how much input you want to put in and how much you want to get out of it. If you want to put a lot of effort into it and get a lot of ISK out of it, then you can get that, but then it'll require a lot of logistics, hauling, potential risks with gankers, etc. Or you want to produce everything on one planet, like I do, then it makes everything really simple because all you just collect your items and sell them. You don't have to move anything really apart from collecting your items. PI guide, hope it was clear. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something new. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later.